Hello, everyone. My name is Rusty Ford. I lead suicide prevention and suicide intervention training throughout the state of Washington, specializing in working with churches. Today, I have a very important video about youth ministry and the teen suicide epidemic. The numbers are staggering. I'll share with those shortly. Uh, but beforehand, I do share videos at least twice a week on suicide prevention and some aspect of it. If you're interested in the subject, you may be interested in subscribing to the video. Second, you're welcome to make comments below. Share something that your church may be doing, ways that you have of ministering to kids who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and or suicide ideation. But it's an important video because the need is so important and it affects every community. And unless you're up on the topic, you may be surprised at just how serious the need is. So in the video, I'm going to start off briefly sharing some of the numbers and then share different things that your church can do to help minister not only to youth who are thinking about ending their life, but most of these things apply to helping anybody who's thinking about ending their life. So to start off, all my numbers are coming from the Youth Risk Benefit Behavior Survey. This is put on by the CDC. It's a national school-based survey. They survey tens of thousands of kids in various schools throughout the United States. Today, as it says right here on the slide that you're looking at, we're going to be looking at the 2019 results. 2020 won't be out for a while, so this is the closest numbers that we have. And there we go. Each day in our nation, there's an average of over 3,700 attempts by young people, grades 9 through 12. And that's crazy. 3,703 kids every day in our high schools attempt to end their life. And that was over 1,351,000 attempts at suicide last year by 9th through 12th graders. And the number even becomes more staggering when you realize that this is only dealing with the previous year in the survey. So the numbers do go up even higher than that. Some of these young people who attempt again. So it's not 4 times the numbers for that year, but over that 4-year period of time. But you can see that the number is staggering. 18.9% of high school students thought seriously about suicide during this past year. 15.7 thought serious enough about suicide to make a plan. 8.9% of teens grades 9 through 12 attempted suicide, and this was up from 7.4 in the 2018 survey. And I'm just hoping with kids that staying at home and things changing that the numbers didn't get worse for 2020. So let's put these numbers in the context of your community, to make it a little easier to understand. Let's say that you've got a high school in your local community that has 1,000 students. On average, there would be 189 students out of that 1,000 that have thought seriously about suicide in the past year. There would be 157 who thought seriously enough about suicide to make a plan, and 89 who will have attempted in the past year to end their life. That's out of 1,000 students. That is unbelievable and terrible numbers. And something needs to be done to address this. Schools are looking at ways, the government's looking at ways, but the church has a unique opportunity to make a huge difference in these young people's lives, because You know, we do it out of the sheer love and compassion in our heart. It's not some kind of obligation. It's not something that's forced upon us. You, we don't have the government telling us that we have to do things like schools do. And I think schools care about the kids. And so what they're doing uh, is coming out of a heart of caring too. But we know a love that they don't know. We have access to the Holy Spirit and ministry and uh, a caring community that's unlike any other and is in a unique position to have a powerful influence in changing the lives of these young people and changing their lives for the better, to lead them to having a healthy, happy, whole, full, complete life. While these numbers are terrifying, the good news is, I've covered this, but I'm going to read it again. Is your church and your youth group are in a powerful position to love and care for these struggling teens. Here are 10 things you can do or your church can do to change the lives of these teens and the community you live in. And these 10 things not only will help those who are struggling with suicide, but help the broader group of teenagers in general, especially those who are suffering depression or anxiety, which is a phenomenal number among our youth today. Number one, I've got a little mistake here in my presentation, but I'm not going to back up and start again. It's simply be the loving group of people God has called you to be. Spending a ton of time loving these teenagers will be life-changing. And so this comes down from the whole church, the youth group, the youth pastor, the youth staff, and the youth in your youth group. When all these people are committed to making the life of somebody struggling with suicidal thoughts, it'll radically change their life. I mean, they're not used to it. They don't think they're important. They don't think anybody loves them. They don't think anybody cares. They think the world would be better off without them. They think their families would be better off without them. Their community would be better off without them. Their school would be better off without them. And so when we can be the loving people that God has called us to be, this is revolutionary to them, and it is life-changing. Step two is educate. I believe that all church staff members of any type ought to have suicide prevention training, as well as mental health first aid training. They need to know and have a better understanding of what people are feeling and going through. It's really the basis of our ability to minister to people is to understand the pain and hurt that they're feeling. But this is especially true with your youth ministry, because the numbers are just dramatically higher among youth than any other age group. And they're also at an age where they're impressionable, and loving and caring for them can easily make a life transforming change in their life. And so I think everyone who works with youth in any way should have basic suicide prevention training. And usually that's really more suicide intervention training. But in that you learn, what to look for, what are some of the signs, what leads to suicide behavior, and as well as the intervention part of when somebody is suicidal, how do you help them, make a step to wholeness? How do you break that cycle of suicidal ideation? Top leaders in your church should have advanced suicide intervention training, such as ASSIST, which is a 2-day training, or the training provided by your local crisis call center. It's usually a 2-day in-depth training. But having people at your church that know how to work all the way through an intervention can be important. But having everybody having the basic level of training so that they can start the process and then get somebody more involved to help finish if the person is in suicide crisis. And everybody that works with youth uh, should have youth mental health first aid, so that they have a better understanding of what youth are going through and the struggles that they're facing, both you know just as a teenager, but the emotional feelings that they're struggling with. Number three is identify youth who are suffering from depression, anxiety, or other mental health issue, and mentor them. This could be one-on-one. This could be through small groups. This could be through support groups. Um, you know, um, you know, any kind of training for your whole youth group that helps them, develop a better self-image or stronger social skills will help. You know, almost all teenagers struggle with self-image things. I mean, I'm not saying anything that those of you who work with youth ministry don't already understand. Because that's kind of the foundational uh, teaching in so many youth groups is who they are, what God has called them to be, God's love for them, God's adoption for them as family, into His family. You work on self-image, and at least most youth groups I know do, but a lot of them don't specifically work with social skills and helping kids that don't have social skills develop social skills can be very important in both the mental health area as well as teens struggling with thoughts of ending their life. When appropriate and when you can, talk with families, and see how you can support them, because families are at the core of the ministry. Uh, Number five, you can start a mental health support group such as Fresh Hope for teens. I lead a Fresh Hope support group for adults, and I've seen just how life-changing a Christian-based mental health support group can be. It transformed my life, changed me. Moved me back into a place where I have a full and complete and happy life. Uh, you know, uh, and the same is true with children. So, you and if you're not large enough or you don't have anybody qualified to lead the group, look to see if there's one in your community. Um, and so, number six, uh, be prepared to minister to your student when someone at their school ends their life. You, Almost every high school, every year nowadays, sees somebody that not only attempts their life to end their life, but somebody who, you can't use the word successful, but whose life ends because of their suicide attempt. And so be prepared to work with your students, with your community, with your school. Uh, Open your doors of your school to have a memorial service for this student. You have an opportunity for kids from your youth group and anybody else from your youth group to come uh, and minister them. An opportunity to share and and to open up. Hearing, being able to share how they feel and listen to other people share how they feel can be a powerful ministry. Um, Number seven, openly teach about mental health and suicide. Not only, when I was talking about training before, not only should your leaders be trained, but many of your youth men, people in your youth group should be trained, especially those who are leaders in the youth group, so they know what to look for among their friends. You, Number eight is in your youth ministry, in your preaching, teaching, in your small groups, and in your one-on-one relationships with people, always provide hope and the reasons for hope. Hope is just not wishful thinking. Hope is an expectation that's going to happen based on certain circumstances. Had a friend whose dad told him, when he graduated from high school, he would buy him a car. And he had that hope all through high school. And when he graduated from high school, he walked up and said, "Dad, let's go look at a car," because he fully expected that he was going to get a car because he met the conditions. Well, there's, God has so much he wants to offer to us that will lead us to a full and happy life. So always sharing the reasons we have to hope, and the reasons we have for the expectation that our life is going to turn out good and okay is something that should always be preached. Yes, teaching right and wrong, teaching the morals of the Bible, teaching basic theology uh, is important. But if you look at the New Testament, you will see that over and over and over, one of the most talked about topics is the hope that we have in Jesus. So we always ought to be promoting that hope um, with our youth group as well as with every person that comes to our church. Uh, Number 9 is find ways to deal with social isolation. One of the key problems that people face when they're suicidal is they feel isolated. They feel that people don't care. When you're suffering any type of mental health issue, the worst thing that you can do is to isolate yourself. Well, if adults don't know how to get past this issue, it's even harder for teens, and so you need to provide them opportunities uh, to get out off the couch, to get out from behind their video game, something that ways of doing things that are positive. I know you already do that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the youth group. But one of the ways that you can do this is providing smaller groups, because people with mental health issues usually struggle with larger groups. And, you will find that these people, will tend to be on the fringe. They'll sit on the sidelines. They'll sit in the back. They won't participate. They won't come to, uh, uh, you know, uh, events where they'll be noticed. They like to hide. A lot of kids like to go to a bigger youth group because they like to feel like they're part of something, but they don't want to be noticed and singled out. So they'll go to a large youth group so they can be around other people, but still be isolated. And you can be isolated and be in the middle of a crowd of people. You, um, and so one of the ways is to bring the group smaller and allow these young people to develop real friendships and real relationships, and it's these relationships that will help them get past mental health issues as well as get past suicidal thoughts. And the number 10 is to strengthen protective factors. Now, here's a common list put out by SAMHSA, which is a government agency that does research in suicide, uh, thoughts and patterns and how to correct it. One of the key things is parent connectedness. So in your youth group, whatever way you can to strengthen the relationship between parents and their children will help children to be less likely to be thinking about suicide. The second one is, you know, having relationships with non-parental adults is a very powerful way of keeping young people from thinking about suicide. Their life has more meaning when they have good, healthy relationships with parents and other adults. Your school safety, that's the one they can work on. One churches can do is closeness to caring friends. If every child that's sitting on the fringe, every child that's struggling with depression and anxiety or suicidal thoughts has opportunities to make good, close friendships, you are going to make a huge difference in the number of kids that think about suicide or attempt suicide. Teaching kids resilience, how to handle problems, how to overcome. This can be done through a mental health support group. This can be done through specific trainings. There are curriculums out there that deal with this. Neighborhood safety, whatever your church is doing to help in the neighborhood. Your access to health services. this is especially something the church can do in a rural community where access to health services, especially mental health services, is not easy to access. Uh, Academic achievement. You, uh, uh, some churches have tutoring and other programs. Anything you can't do to help kids achieve and become successful makes it less likely that they'll think about suicide. And there's a couple that aren't on this list. Exercise. You know, many studies have shown the significant difference that exercise makes in mental health of young people. I've seen a couple that specifically deal with suicide, but I've seen several just in the last 2 years that show you know, the benefit for any child that is suicidal or suffering with anxiety. It's a significant benefit when they exercise 4 days a week. And with many schools cutting back on physical education programs, um, having different types of exercise programs or sports programs in your church that struggling teens can get involved with can make a huge difference. And another, it's not really a protective factor. It's just kids who are sexually active have 2.5 times the number of attempted suicides than high schoolers who aren't involved in sex. So the things that you're doing to encourage abstinence and helping somebody find that they're okay just as they are, they don't have to sacrifice their values to be loved. And that's really one of the reasons why so many teenagers start having sex is they don't feel loved, they don't feel cared for, and they don't feel that that this person is the only person that loves them. And if they don't do what they need to do or that person wants, then that person won't love them, and then they'll have nobody. So building that sense of community and the fact that there are people that love them can help them avoid that. It also can help them avoid some of the other risk factors like drugs. Having good, healthy relationships and a full and happy life, it makes it a lot easier to say no to drugs, which is kids who use marijuana are significantly higher risk at suicide. Other drugs even throw it up even higher than that. So, just building that strong sense of community is one of the most powerful things you can do. And so I encourage you to end this up to love big, to love yourselves, to love your staff, and for all of you to love the kids in your youth group and to provide many opportunities for them to develop healthy relationships. Can go a long way in changing these numbers in your community. And then being trained and recognized when somebody is suicidal so you can get them the help that they need. So I wish you all the best. It's almost, we just passed Christmas yesterday, heading to the 2021. I hope your 2021 is a much better year than 2020 has been. It's been hard on all of us, but I care for you, and I just pray and that for your church and for your ministry. Not specifically, I do that for the church as a whole because I don't. If you mention your church in the comments and what you're doing, I will be specifically praying for your church because I always pray for everybody that makes a comment. So I wish you the best.